Welcome to the Life and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss business, leadership, and friendship. I'm Zach Goebel.
And I'm Jared Totsch. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. This is episode 3. Jared, how are you today?
I am lovely with these nice new fancy mics. I feel pretty
Sounds better too.
highfalutin. It does sound much
And
better.
we also added one other thing here. We added a little sound machine. Yay! So we're going to have some fun with this. But welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about gray areas in business. Are they good? Are they bad?
That's when we should have had a
Yeah. Gray areas in business. No, that's not right.
It's like a celebration. Like, yes, I love the gray areas.
Yeah, we'll figure it out here. I don't know. We don't have a good one.
It needs to be like
Here,
this.
tense. Not scary. Okay. So anyway, gray areas in business.
For all the HR folks and everyone else, they're sitting there like, okay, I'm shutting this podcast off.
So anyway, gray areas in business. Are they good? Are they bad? Is there some good, some bad? And so anyway, this is something that we have talked about in our staff meetings with our office. They had been teasing me about it here a while back. Jared, I can't remember exactly how long ago it was, but it had been a while back. They had been teasing me for a while. They would bring me a situation or something. And it was, areas that they kept teasing me about. Hey, this is a gray area. We don't know what to do because you may do it differently this time than you did last time, handle the situation. And so
Very inconsistent.
very inconsistent. But we had a situation here within the last 6-8 months, something like that, that we had discussed leading up to, why there's certain things that we don't say, was black and white. This is how we handle the situation. We're a small business and we are a customer service business. And so we provide the best service out there in our region, in our area, in our service area.
Not
And
egotistical or anything.
No, not egotistical. Just that's
Stating the facts.
That's what we pride ourselves on. We're a small business, so we have
agree.
to have the best out there. So they had brought a situation to me, and I remember I can't remember if it was in the next staff meeting or if it was right then and there. I said, this is why we have certain things that I don't set black and white. This is how we handle it. And I can't remember. I could probably ask them and see if they remember. I can't remember exactly the situation, but it was something I remember. It was an elderly lady, and she needed help with something. And again, I wish I could remember everything, but she needed help with something. And because we didn't have this set procedure of this is how we handle this situation, we were able to better provide service for the customer and better assist her. And she was extremely thankful, and it just turned out, it made the whole office staff proud, at that moment to be able to help her in this situation. And so we had discussed after that, that one of the main reasons, and there's, and we'll get into this, there are things that have to be black and white. There's situations and procedures and protocol that you have to have. This is our procedure. This is how we handle it. And there are reasons, and you can't go, beyond these bounds, these boundaries, these lines here. But there are other areas, especially in the customer service area. I want to give our team and I want our business to be known for being flexibility, for being able to serve our customers, serve our community, without saying, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that because that's our procedure.
Yeah, so it's like having boundaries that, to me, I look at gray areas oftentimes, like you said, that I truly believe that there are many, there are instances where things do have to be absolutely black and white.
Yeah.
Like you have no choice. There are certain HR topics, certain finance things that they must be black and white. And a lot of the other areas, though, there are boundaries, right?
Correct.
And you have boundaries, like limits and things. And it's setting those boundaries and then living within that space
Yes.
in the middle that we would call
Yes.
the gray area, because it does offer flexibility.
Mhm.
And whether that's, I mean, give us some scenarios or situations. You might be getting into that, and I just rushed ahead.
No, you're fine. And no, I didn't necessarily have anything right off the top of my head, any situations, but there are, especially on the financial side, if a customer is going through a financial situation, and let's just say that our procedure is that there's a late fee that is incurred on this date.
If they're having a financial issue, then you all could potentially waive that fee, right?
we could
then
waive it, or we could even say we don't have
set them up on
a
a payment plan
yeah.
or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're not this huge company that we can keep all these records of payment plans and things, but we had
You have that
recently,
flexibility.
yeah.
Yes.
And we just set up reminders. They said they were going to call in every Friday and pay X amount,
and
we were able to do that.
And I know even big companies do that. Recently, I have a credit card that there's zero balance on it typically, and I had purchased one item with this credit card and totally
hot tub.
No, it was not a hot tub. No, it was like a $75. Unfortunately, it was like a $75 charging cord.
Wow.
For a computer.
Oh my word.
It's horrible. And unfortunately, that's my second one that I've had to purchase. But that's because I leave them places. Anyways, I totally forgot that I put anything on that card. And I assumed that I didn't put it on the card. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, it dawned on me literally the day after the payment was due. And I was like, And so immediately, like, I jumped on the phone, which nowadays you don't even talk on the phone. You just send them messages back and forth, and you get these AI chat things that think they know what you're talking about, and they have no idea what you're talking about. And you get all these crazy messages, and you're like, can I just talk to a human being? Because, like, your AI technology needs to be boosted before you release it. But anyways, I did get it resolved. And one of the things when I finally did speak to someone, they said, well, hey, we're going to look at your history. I could tell you right now, I've never been late. I don't have a balance on this credit card. I don't keep one, but I got it. And they said, well, we'll look at your history. We'll look at that. So they had boundaries. So yes, straightforward in their policy, it says, here's the fee. And if you're late, like, we do a couple things. We charge you a fee, and then we max out your interest rate on it, which just makes me want to close the credit card. But anyways, they do those things, but they obviously have a space that they can give you a flexibility. Like, okay, we'll look and see. Like, you pay on time, you don't keep a balance on this card. This has never happened to you before. You have great credit history, yada, yada, yada. And they said, you'll see it taken off the next charge. Yeah. Great. Actually, I just paid the whole card off because I couldn't, But I appreciated that charge being taken off.
And they didn't want to lose you as a customer. In these scenarios, in these situations with customer service, to be able to empower your team.
You trust your team. Okay, so your company. So like by when you trust your team, you are empowering them to make the best decision because you trust them already, and you've shown that you trusted them.
Right.
So then they're going to, like, you just believe that they're going to make the best decision. And if the decision is not one that necessarily should have been made, or you think, hey, like there may have been a better way or a different way, it's not about devaluing them in that, but just like it's a conversation.
Yes.
Like, hey, I really appreciate that you did, and that's a whole other topic. But
so I tell our team, if there's something, just make a decision. And if it's wrong, then we can address it at that time and fix it. And then it's a teachable moment. It's a learning moment where the next time down the road, I think it was...
or maybe it would have been a better decision than one you would have made.
Yeah, maybe so. I think it's Dave Ramsey in EntreLeadership. I believe it is. Anyway, he talks about if people come to him, if his team comes to him and wants to know how to handle a situation, he'll tell them, go write down your 3 best answers, what you think they are, or 3 options of how to handle a situation, and then bring them to me and tell me how you think would be the best way to handle it. And so that gets your team thinking and trying to figure out, and it is empowering them, empowering your team, empowering, whether it's customer service, or if it's in our case, drivers, whatever it may be, I want them to have the knowledge and the flexibility, and the boundaries to be able to make these decisions to help better serve our
Absolutely.
customers.
Yeah. And I think what you were getting at with the gray area, and if you're so black and white, like this is absolutely the way we have to do it. We must do it this way. We've done it this way for 1,000 years. We still must do it this way. It's what works. We know it works. You run the risk of squashing new ideas, creativity. You also
that's good.
ruin the risk for customer service. If everybody is treated just as like, oh, I'm sorry you're going through this hard time, but guess what? And like I said, you have those boundaries that you work within, but having that ability to have flexibility just offers, I don't know, it's a better space for customers.
It's neat what you said about creativity, how if you throw down every idea, squash every idea that someone brings to you, they're going to stop bringing ideas. And that was neat. I don't even think I've ever thought about it that way. That you want your team, everyone on your team, to have that voice. Now, you don't give them a platform right away, but you want them to be able to come to you and have that voice of ideas. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, we can't make things better in the company. I'm not going to say, I can't stand when, and it happens, especially sometimes in family businesses and things, where if one generation is stuck on, this is the way that we've done it for 50 years, this is the way that we've always done it, and it's always worked. But if there are better procedures and better ways of handling things, I'm open to that. And I don't want to be afraid of change, because change can be good. And there's, I don't think you're ever going to find out until you try.
Right. So. Right. I think one of the things I appreciate, I had a boss who told me that her job and part of her role, not her 100% of her job, and this was after a performance evaluation, was to set me up to become the best person, individual, employee that I could become. And that she honestly hoped that one day I was her supervisor, or even if I found another space to work within, that I just continue to grow and move, and that she would know that she had done her job if I was flourishing and growing that way, and my ideas were coming and I was moving up and all those things. And I think when you have a company that allows for that flexibility in thinking within a space, that not everything is just black and white. Like, here's the rules, sorry. And sometimes there are rules that, depending on what type of organization you work for, you might be within a budget constraint, right? Sure. So working for a nonprofit organization, there's only so much that you can do with a budget, right? Because once you set that budget for the year, your budget is pretty much set. Yeah, you can finagle this way and finagle that way, but it's not like many other for-profit businesses that can kind of move money around a little bit without too much raise of alarm, right? So like, you don't have much flexibility in that, but there are other areas that you can give employees. So you might have to live with, well, this is how it is, but I want you to know, like, next budget year, we're going to figure out a way to like incorporate your idea. Yeah. So you can still let employees know, like, yes, you were heard. We can't do anything about it now, but in the future.
Yeah, that's good. So I had a conversation with my brother here recently, and he said he used to work for a larger company in a customer service field. And there was a situation where a customer was asking for something, some different type of service, changing something around, something that the company was extremely well capable of doing and could have done. And when he took it to the leadership, they said, no, we can't do that because these are our procedures and we can't go beyond this because of our shareholders. That stuff just drives me nuts. And I know I'm a small business guy, and I love small businesses.
So I'm getting ahead of your point there, but
Okay.
you are the top of the food chain. So you have the overall say of your small business. So you have that control. And now I don't know this in your brother's situation. So your brother went to these people, and I'm just playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. So your brother goes to these people. If his boss did not have an environment that fostered that flexibility, and he showed flexibility to your brother, by showing flexibility to your brother, he just crossed one of those black and white boundaries.
Yeah.
And so then that, now this guy here has been put in a bad place. He's gone, your brother's gone, or something happens. You see what I'm saying? So like, when you're your own boss, you get to get to do that.
And
like,
I agree with that. I mean, I still have somebody to answer to. My father-in-law is still the owner,
absolutely.
still the owner. But I think if you really trust your team, my father-in-law trusts me, and I trust everyone that works for us. If you trust your team, no matter if it's a huge corporation or a small business, no matter if you have a team of 3 or if you have a team of hundreds of thousands, you have to incorporate trust in a business.
And I would say like, it is very possible that maybe that guy, maybe I don't want to make an assumption about his leadership capabilities or their inability to lead, one way or the other. Somewhere along the line, he got the idea that this had to be that way. So whether that was like how he was brought up, in that, like, no, you follow the rules and everything goes this way. Like, everything is very orderly, organized, boom, 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 boom. Like, this is how it goes.
Yeah.
Or if it was the culture and climate of the actual organization. So it could either be like his personality, right, playing into effect, which then impacts your brother, his happiness, which then impacts
ultimately impacts the customer.
Yes, and that's the trickle down effect. Or is he working for an organization overall that does not want, does not allow for that space, or that hasn't fostered that in him? Like, that's where I mean, it's the power of honestly, it's the power of providing the flexible space for gray areas and for creative thinking for people.
Yeah. And I think it's easy for me to speak on it because of what you just said, because of where I am in the business and the size of our business. We have 33 on our team right now, I think. So it's easy for me to sit here and say, that you should allow this in order to serve your customers better. And I understand there's probably managers, supervisors, leaders out there that are listening to this
and feel helpless and powerless
because of the people that get. And I can't give great wisdom to that other than do the best that you can.
Well, I was going to say the areas then for you is to create the gray space, right? Create the gray space that you have the argument that it actually is gray space. So if you do work for an organization that may not allow a lot of flexibility in thinking and how you conduct things, then you as a person, like, even if it's just a small area, like asking for some basic feedback, like, okay, here's this group of customers. We had a 50-50, 50% were really satisfied, 50% were not. What are your guys' thoughts, right? And take some of that feedback, see if you can manipulate it into something and shoot it up the chain to make some changes, right? All of a sudden, you just did something for your team, for a company that may be just black and white, but you just created a space for your team without it being a big deal to like get their thoughts, feedback, and like feel like, oh, okay, like at least I was heard. Nothing may be able to happen, right? I might not be able to do a thing about it, but I was heard for the moment, and I know, like, so I mean, that's a small thing.
Yeah,
it seems small, but in the long run, it's not.
Yeah, where the rubber meets the road is that it needs to happen all the way up.
Oh, it has absolutely.
It has to.
Well, it's about, and some people would say it's about flipping flipping that pyramid,
Mhm.
turning it upside down, because like it's not, when you are strictly a top-down model, like there are some areas that it has to come from the top, but then there's like it has to almost be like this back and forth, like where sometimes it's the pyramid, sometimes it's the pyramids, upside down,
Yeah.
because, and you can't live in just one space, right? I mean, you could. I'm making a very blunt statement. You
Yeah.
could live in just one space, but if you live in top-down model all the time, then your employees have no voice. And if you live in a employee voice only, you run the risk of no organizational structure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what do they call
Chaos.
it on a ship when the crew takes over the ship?
Mutiny.
Yes, they got mutiny. And no organization, and then even worse customer service after that. So
right. So it's like you're always floating back and forth between like knowing where's the black and white, where's my role as the leader of this company. Ultimately, like I have to take the responsibility, but then also providing space, because it's the same thing with your customers. Like you can give them all the gray space in the world, but at some point you have to take some responsibility for the company.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will be out of business in 2 weeks, because if you let your customers dictate every move you make, then like why are you running the business?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you're going to allow your customers to run your business, you're not going to have a business, because
no,
small businesses are, and I
you
know
have to make.
Yeah.
You have to make money.
You
like
come
you're
from the
there to make
nonprofit
money.
world, yeah.
Yes, and then in the nonprofit world versus the money making, the investor, like you have all of that. And there's a balance. Like I firmly believe we could get into that discussion, like how much is enough, when is enough, and when does the investor begin to drive the decision making of the company instead of like the person who's supposed to be benefiting. I'm not even going to get into some of the large companies that have been in the news lately.
Well,
but it's
exactly.
But it's exactly that. It's like where the investor wants more profit for what they've invested, but does it come at the risk of like the consumer losing out on benefits from
so even with that being said, that's something that, and I hate to keep, but going back to Dave Ramsey, referencing him in his Entree Leadership podcast, and he talks about that, how with larger corporations, all they're worried about is the bottom line, and so they will, because they have to keep their investors happy, they have to keep the shareholders happy, and so without thinking twice, they'll lay off hundreds of people, thousands of people, because of this. Whereas if you work for a small business, and this is getting off topic a little bit, but small businesses generally care about their team. It allows a small business, a family business, to be able to better serve their team.
Yeah.
And as a family business, you can do things that a larger business can't, because it's not, this is the way it goes, this is how you treat this situation, etc. And again, I know that you have to be extremely, extremely careful with
it's very delicate. It's a very
personal
delicate
issues.
Yeah, it's a very delicate issue, but it does allow for when a person can go, once again, be creative, think outside of those black and white lines. It's kind of a nicer space to work in when somebody can go outside of the actual norm. Because you think about, like you said, finances, and my mind went to like time off, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody's going through something immensely challenging or stressful in their personal life, like maybe it's caring for a parent, another relative, something like that, right? And they may need some flexibility. Now, certain jobs you don't have flexibility in your hours, like your hours are your hours, and like people depend on you. But if you do have flexibility as a smaller employer, like oftentimes do we have to just stick with this black and white?
Yeah.
And then once again, like I said, you have to be very cognizant of that and not say, well, we did it for this employee, and then you get into this judgment level of like what need is greater, which need is greater, which, but that's why it's called gray areas, because you do run the risk of
I found in the last several years as we've grown, just because we do want to be cautious with that, there are times where before we ever even try to help in a situation or handle a situation of any sizable, we do get with our attorney just to make sure we're not setting ourselves up for failure, things of that
Absolutely.
nature. So you have to be careful with those things, especially when dealing with a personnel issue.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the key in my mind is the key space with gray areas is like having some boundaries within those gray areas, because gray areas work if there are boundaries, and then having people who are in those spaces that are highly ethical, have high ethics, have high, like lots of good quality characteristics that are making those decisions. And that's what you want in your team members. And like if you trust your team to do that, then like those boundaries will be created sometimes naturally, just because that's the kind of team you want. If you're hiring in people who may not have the highest ethics, who might not mind.
Maybe you need to change your hiring practices.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because then your gray areas are going to go real south.
Yeah. So we've talked about the business side of it, and we haven't discussed this at all, but I can't think of any off the top of my head, but is there room for gray areas on the friendship side?
So like maybe one person has perspective of the world or a perspective of life or a perspective of a situation that another person doesn't. And so you kind of have to like, somebody has to give, right? Like you can't, I mean, you don't have to, but then if you constantly
just never talk about it.
Yes, if you're constantly going back to that area, or like there could be gray areas in terms of like loaning money. Like that's a gray area with friendship, and I think that gets very dicey in friendship. And like, when do you loan a friend money, and when do you not loan a friend money? When do you accept money from a friend?
Yeah.
And I have like those to me are very gray areas, and you have to be very careful with. But that's a whole different.
Yeah.
That's a different style of gray area, but that's a very that's a boundaries.
I've heard it said before, and Amanda and I have talked about this, and we live by this. I don't think it's ever a good idea, especially in friendship or in family, to loan money. If you want to give money, so if your friend is in need,
and if you can give it, and you can give it without, and you know that you are not holding on to anything, any string or attachment, and it truly has to be.
Borrowing money is such it can be a trap on either side, and not that someone that would loan you money is trying to trap you, but I think it's a trap on either side. Because it can put you and the person you're loaning money to in a bad situation.
Yeah, you can just feel like you owe that person, or that person can feel like you owe them.
If you want to give it as a gift,
give it as the gift, but make sure that it's very well understood that it's a gift and that there are no strings attached. And like, I don't know, that's one of the few areas I can think of that's like maybe a gray space.
So we also have people that listen to our podcast that are in the ministry and different things in church and stuff. And I'm not even going to touch. That's what I was going to say. I'm not going to touch everything. No. You know that obviously the Bible is black and white, and So when we are talking about gray areas, don't think that we're talking about spiritual things. We're talking about strictly business right here. So.
No, that's one. That's politics, and not like those are two that I would not.
We're politics.
No, I'm not talking politics.
Well, I think that about wraps us up. Hopefully, this was a help to some of you, whether you're in a small business and you can,
or in a large company,
or
you're a leader in a large company or a large organization.
Hopefully, this can help you address some of the things that to help your team.
And I know this was slightly different than our last one, but I think I'm hoping that all of ours have a unique flavor to them, unique style. Each of them, none of them are the same, so that we can, appeal to a wider audience and
and
keeps our brains going.
Yeah, just want to be a help. And again, we would be having these conversations anyway.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that we like to talk about, and I'm very interested in growing myself, growing personally, growing as a leader. And so these are conversations that you must have. With that,
That's why I eat more every day.
That's why you eat more every day. These are conversations that if you're a leader,
Yeah,
you must
absolutely.
have these conversations.
You have to.
You have to be willing to grow.
Yeah, you do, and I think because the thing is, if you always see things as black and white, and you're never able to, and once again, we're talking about businesses and those types of things, so not anything else. If you're never able to kind of dabble in those gray areas and gray spaces, like, I think you're missing out on a lot of opportunity and a lot of creativity and a lot of really cool things that could happen for your organization.
So thanks for listening or watching. We appreciate your support. We would love it. It would help us out tremendously if you could share this or like it,
Absolutely.
or rate it, however you want to do it. And we really appreciate the support, and we look forward to doing this again.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.